Are you tired of staring at that denial letter? Are you watching years of service and sacrifice amount to nothing because the VA keeps kicking your claim back? Every veteran knows the frustration of navigating the Department of Veterans Affairs bureaucracy. It feels like a rigged game designed to wear you down until you just give up. But often, the biggest hurdles aren't the VA regulations themselves. They are the fundamental, costly mistakes veterans make in the preparation and submission of their own claims. Mistakes that cost them hundreds of thousands of dollars in lifetime benefits and the medical care they desperately need. Today, we are cracking the code. We are diving deep into the 10 most catastrophic errors veterans commit, the ones that guarantee a denial, the ones that turn a slam-dunk case into a disaster. If you are preparing to file, or if you've been denied and are planning an appeal, this is the essential knowledge that separates the successful claims from the scrap heap. We are not just talking about minor slip-ups, we are talking about procedural landmines that ruin your effective date and permanently damage your chances. The first and arguably most destructive mistake veterans make is failing to establish a clear and undeniable nexus. This is the single most common reason for denial, yet it is the most misunderstood piece of the VA puzzle. What is the nexus? It is the bridge. It is the mandatory, unbroken link between a current diagnosed medical condition and an event, injury, or disease that occurred during your active military service. The VA operates under the assumption that if you are currently disabled, that disability is not related to your service unless you prove otherwise. Simply having a medical condition and having served in the military is not enough. You need the connection, the medical opinion that ties the two together. Think of the nexus as the foundation of your entire claim. If the foundation is shaky, the whole structure collapses, no matter how much evidence you pile on top. Many veterans make the mistake of believing their service medical records, SMRs, are enough to prove the connection. They assume that because they complained about a knee issue in 1995 and they have knee pain now, the VA will connect the dots. The VA will not. They are looking for specific language, usually from a medical professional, stating that the current condition is at least as likely as not due to the service event. This isn't just a casual doctor's note. It often requires a specialized medical nexus letter, sometimes called an independent medical opinion, IMO. The cost of this mistake is astronomical. If your claim is denied because the nexus is missing, you have to start the process over, potentially losing months or even years of retroactive pay. Imagine a veteran, let's call him Mark, who served in the Navy. Mark has severe lower back pain now, years after his discharge. He files his claim and includes his discharge papers and recent x-rays. He even includes a statement explaining how he lifted heavy gear constantly on the ship. The VA denies him. Why? Because Mark's current treating physician simply wrote, "Patient has chronic low back pain." This is a diagnosis, but it says absolutely nothing about the cause. The VA rater looks at that and says, this condition could be due to service, or it could be due to his civilian job lifting boxes or a car accident he had last year. The doubt sinks the claim. To correct this, Mark needs to go back, find a physician who specializes in VA claims, and pay for that physician to review his SMRs and his current records, and then write a detailed, evidence-based opinion that specifically cites the service event and uses the required at least as likely as not language. This meticulous step is often skipped because veterans either don't know it's required or they try to save money, not realizing that skipping the $1 in $500 Nexus letter costs them $50,000 in benefits over the next 5 years. The depth of this requirement cannot be overstated. When crafting your nexus, you must ensure the medical professional understands the specific requirements of VA law. They must be able to cite medical literature if necessary, and they must directly counter any negative findings the VA might already have on file. If the VA has previously suggested the condition is congenital, the nexus letter must address and rebut that finding with clinical evidence. This level of detail is the difference between success and failure, and ignoring it is the most costly error you can make. Moving directly from the structural failure of the nexus, the second critical mistake is self-diagnosing and failing to obtain a formal current diagnosis. Many veterans are tough. They learn to suck it up and drive on. This mentality is lethal to a VA claim. You cannot file a claim for bad knees or feeling depressed. The VA doesn't rate symptoms, they rate diagnosed conditions that impair your ability to function. The VA rater needs to see an ICD code, a specific recognized medical classification for your ailment. Veterans often rely on old diagnoses from their service treatment records, STRs, or SMRs, thinking those are sufficient. They are not. If you were diagnosed with anxiety disorder in 2005, but you are filing in 2024, the VA needs to know that the condition still exists today and how severe it is today. Imagine Sarah, a former Army medic. She knows she has severe PTSD, but she avoided treatment for years due to stigma. She files her claim detailing her trauma and symptoms. The VA denies her, saying, while the evidence shows a stressful event, there is no current diagnosis of PTSD. Sarah's mistake wasn't avoiding treatment. Her mistake was filing the claim before getting the current official diagnosis. The VA is not in the business of diagnosing you. They are in the business of compensating you for an existing diagnosed problem caused by service. The C&P examiner's job is to confirm the diagnosis and assess the severity, but they are not always obligated to make a primary diagnosis if you haven't been seen recently. The cost here is twofold: instant denial and the loss of the earliest possible effective date. You must walk into the C&P exam with a recent confirmed diagnosis from a private or VA physician. If you are claiming a mental health condition, you need a diagnosis from a licensed psychiatrist or psychologist. If you are claiming a physical ailment, you need a diagnosis from the appropriate specialist. Don't assume the VA will fill in the blanks. They won't. They will simply state that the condition claimed lacks a current medical diagnosis and close the file. This step is non-negotiable. Furthermore, when obtaining this diagnosis, ensure the doctor uses the full official medical terminology. Avoid vague terms. If you are claiming migraines, the diagnosis should be specific, such as migraine disorder, chronic with aura, not just headaches. Precision in diagnosis supports the claim's credibility and aligns it perfectly with the VA's rating schedule requirements. The third, catastrophic error often committed by veterans who are struggling financially or mentally, is downplaying symptoms during the compensation and pension C&P examination. This is perhaps the most heartbreaking mistake because it stems directly from the military ethos of stoicism and strength. When you sit across from the C&P examiner, your military training tells you to be strong, minimize the pain, and avoid appearing weak. You are asked, "How often does your back hurt?" And you instinctively say, "Oh, maybe a few times a week, but I manage." What you should be saying is, "My back pain is constant, daily, and it is exacerbated by sitting, standing, and lifting, preventing me from performing daily activities." The C&P exam is not a military board review. It is a legal medical assessment designed to determine the severity of your disability. The VA rating is based entirely on the EJR functional impact of your condition, meaning how much it interferes with your ability to work and live a normal life. If you minimize your symptoms, the examiner documents that you have only mild or moderate impairment, leading to a low rating, EBG 0%, 10%, or 30%, or worse, a denial if the symptoms don't meet the minimum threshold for service connection. This mistake can cost a veteran 70% or 80% of their potential benefits. To avoid this, veterans must adopt a worst-day mentality when describing their symptoms. Think about the absolute worst day you had in the last month. How did the pain feel? What activities were you unable to perform? Describe that day. Explain your limitations in concrete terms. Do not say, "I have trouble walking." Say, "I can walk about 100 feet before the pain in my hip forces me to stop and rest for 5 minutes." If you are claiming PTSD, do not just say, "I get anxious." Explain that the anxiety causes severe panic attacks, leads to avoidance of public places, prevents you from holding a steady job, and results in explosive outbursts that damage your relationships. The C&P examiner is not your friend, and they are not your adversary. They are a data collector. Your job is to provide them with the maximum honest data regarding your disability's impact. If you walk out of that exam feeling like you minimized your suffering, you have likely just cost yourself thousands of dollars. Furthermore, veterans often fail to understand that the C&P examiner is obligated to use specific disability benefits questionnaires, DBQs. These DBQs contain checkboxes and specific prompts tied directly to the VA's rating criteria. If you don't articulate your symptoms using language that aligns with those prompts, the examiner cannot check the box that warrants a higher rating. For instance, for mental health claims, if you don't discuss suicidal ideation or inability to maintain employment, the examiner cannot document those severe symptoms, even if they exist. You must be prepared to detail every facet of your impairment, focusing on occupational and social functioning. This intense focus on functional impairment, rather than just the diagnosis, is the absolute key to obtaining a fair rating. The failure to communicate the depth of functional loss is a guarantee of a lower rating, and the resulting financial impact over a lifetime is staggering, often exceeding $500,000 for a veteran who should have been rated at 70% but only received 30%. The fourth major blunder is ignoring the power and necessity of lay evidence, specifically buddy statements and personal statements. Many veterans rely solely on their official military records, believing that if it's not in the SMRs, it didn't happen. This is a profound misunderstanding of VA law, especially the concept of the benefit of the doubt. Lay evidence, statements from you, your spouse, your family, or fellow service members, buddies, can be crucial, particularly when your SMRs are silent or incomplete regarding the onset of an injury or illness. This is especially true for mental health claims or injuries sustained during combat or high-stress environments where medical documentation might have been impossible or overlooked. If you were injured during a specific training exercise but never went to sick bay because you didn't want to fail the exercise, your SMRs will be silent. This is where a buddy statement saves the day. A buddy statement must be specific. It needs to include the full name and contact information of the person. Detail what they witnessed, the event, when it happened, date or approximate time frame, and how they know the injury occurred, the immediate aftermath or behavioral change. A weak buddy statement says, "John was always depressed after deployment." A powerful, retainable statement says, "In February 2008, after the convoy incident near Fallujah, John stopped socializing. I specifically remember him refusing to leave the barracks for 3 weeks straight, and he was constantly shaking and irritable. I saw this firsthand." Your personal statement is equally vital. It provides the narrative thread that connects your service to your current suffering. This is your chance to explain why the official records are incomplete and to provide the context that only you possess. Veterans often write short, emotionless statements, or they submit generic forms. Instead, you need a detailed, chronological account of the incident, the immediate symptoms, the lack of treatment, and why, the persistent symptoms over the years, and the current functional limitations. The cost of skipping lay evidence is that the VA rater has no context. They are looking at sparse records and a current complaint. Lay evidence fills that void, providing the human element and often satisfying the in-service event requirement of the nexus, which is often the hardest element to prove. Failing to gather and submit compelling lay evidence means the VA has an easy out to deny the claim, citing a lack of evidence to support the claim's origin. This is a mistake that is easily corrected, yet frequently overlooked, and the consequences ripple through the entire claim process, often requiring costly and time-consuming appeals that could have been avoided with a simple, detailed statement from a trusted source. Furthermore, for conditions that worsen over time, such as degenerative joint disease or TBI symptoms, the spouse's statement regarding the decline in functional capacity is paramount. The spouse can testify to the veteran's inability to maintain concentration, frequent memory lapses, or increased reliance on assistance for household chores, all factors critical for high ratings. To ignore this readily available yet powerfully persuasive evidence is to intentionally weaken the foundation of your entire claim. The fifth mistake, which often feels counterintuitive to veterans desperate for benefits, is filing a shotgun claim, submitting too many unrelated conditions at once. When a veteran is finally ready to file, they often list every ache, pain, and psychological symptom they have ever experienced since discharge, hoping that something will stick. They file for 15 or 20 conditions simultaneously: tinnitus, plantar fasciitis, GERD, PTSD, bilateral knee strain, hearing loss, sleep apnea, etc. While you can file for everything at once, doing so often backfires spectacularly and causes significant delays. Why? First, the VA's duty to assist means they must schedule C&P exams for all claimed conditions. Coordinating 10 to 15 different specialty exams, orthopedic, audiology, mental health, gastrointestinal, across multiple providers is a logistical nightmare that slows down the entire process from months to potentially years. Second, and more dangerously, it dilutes the focus and strains the rater's patience. When a rater sees a claim for 24 conditions, they often look for the weakest link to justify a partial denial or a request for clarification, which further delays the decision. A far smarter strategy is the surgical approach. Prioritize and phase the ICM-C claims. Focus on the 3 to 5 most severe, well-documented conditions that have the strongest nexus to service. Get those approved, establish service connection, and secure a rating. Once those are established, you can file for secondary conditions. This brings us to the advanced strategy embedded in this correction, using a primary service-connected condition to claim a secondary condition. For instance, instead of filing for bilateral knee pain and back pain simultaneously, both requiring separate nexus letters, focus intensely on getting the knee pain service connected. Once the knee is connected, you can file a secondary claim for the back pain, arguing that the altered gait and posture caused by the service-connected knee pain led directly to the development or aggravation of the back condition. This requires a much simpler nexus letter, often stating that the back pain is proximately due to or aggravated by the primary condition. This phased, strategic approach speeds up the initial decision, secures an effective date for the primary conditions, and makes the subsequent claims easier to prove, avoiding the massive delays and overwhelming complexity associated with the shotgun approach. The financial cost of the shotgun approach is primarily the loss of time and the effective date, as the VA often denies the entire package due to insufficient evidence on just a few conditions, forcing the veteran to appeal everything rather than just the weak links. The sixth monumental mistake, one that causes permanent financial damage, is misunderstanding and missing critical appeal deadlines. The VA system is governed by strict timelines, and failing to adhere to them is an instant, unrecoverable loss of benefits. When the VA denies or partially approves your claim, you have 1 year from the date of the decision letter to file an appeal or submit additional evidence via a supplemental claim. If you miss that 1-year window, the decision becomes final, and you lose the effective date of your original claim. You can still refile, but the new claim's effective date will be the day you refile, meaning you permanently forfeit all the retroactive pay you would have received from the original date of filing. For a veteran with a high rating, missing this deadline can cost tens or even hundreds of thousands of dollars in back pay. The complexity of the current VA appeals system, the Appeals Modernization Act, or AMA, adds to the confusion. Veterans often mistakenly believe they have filed an appeal when they have only submitted a vague letter or called the VA hotline. You must use the correct forms and choose one of the 3 lanes for appeal: Higher Level Review, HLR, Supplemental Claim, or Board Appeal. If you submit a supplemental claim but don't include new and relevant evidence, the VA will deny it because it's not truly supplemental. If you choose an HLR, you cannot submit new evidence. The reviewer only looks at the evidence that was already on file, meaning if your original claim lacked a nexus, the HLR will fail. The mistake is not just missing the deadline, but choosing the wrong lane. If you have new evidence, like that critical nexus letter you should have gotten in the first place, you must use the supplemental claim lane. If you think the VA rater made a clear error in interpreting the existing evidence, you use the HLR lane. The financial implication of choosing the wrong lane is severe delay. If you pick HLR but need to submit new evidence, the HLR will be denied, and you will be forced to file a supplemental claim anyway, wasting 4 to 6 months of processing time. Every month lost is thousands of dollars lost in back pay. Veterans must treat the VA decision letter as an urgent legal document, immediately scheduling time to dissect the reasons for denial and formulating a precise strategy for the next step within that 1-year window. Diligence in tracking deadlines and using the proper forms is paramount to preserving the effective date. The 7th devastating mistake, often seen in claims involving long-term exposure or chronic issues, is relying solely on outdated service medical records, SMRs, and ignoring current, ongoing private medical treatment. While your SMRs are the cornerstone for proving the in-service event, they are often insufficient to prove the current severity or the required continuity of care. The VA needs to see evidence that your condition has persisted and been treated since your separation. Many veterans use the VA system sparingly or rely entirely on private health care, and then fail to gather those private records for their VA claim. The VA will only consider the evidence you submit or the evidence they obtain through their duty to assist request, which is often slow and incomplete. If you have been seeing a civilian orthopedic specialist for your knees for the last 5 years, and those records detail your limited range of motion, surgical history, and medication regimen, those records are gold. If you fail to submit them, the VA rater only sees your 1998 complaint about a sprained ankle and your C&P exam from 2 weeks ago, which might be inconclusive. The lack of continuity of care, documented through private records, creates a gap that the VA uses to break the nexus. They will argue that the condition either resolved after service or that the current disability is due to intervening civilian activities, not the service event. To correct this mistake, veterans must be meticulous in gathering all relevant medical evidence from all sources, dating back to their separation. This includes private doctor's notes, physical therapy records, surgical reports, and prescription histories. When submitting these records, do not just dump a massive stack of disorganized papers. Organize them chronologically, highlight the pertinent parts, like surgical dates, diagnosis codes, and severity notes, and reference them explicitly in your personal statement. For example, your statement should say, The severity of my back condition is detailed in the attached records from Dr. Smith, specifically the MRI report dated 05/15/2023, which shows severe degenerative disc disease. This proactive approach ensures the rater doesn't have to hunt for the evidence, making it easier for them to approve your claim. The failure to provide this comprehensive continuity of care is a costly mistake because it forces the VA to deny the claim based on insufficient evidence, requiring a costly and lengthy appeal process simply to submit records that should have been included in the first place. This mistake is particularly prevalent in mental health claims, where a veteran may have seen 3 different private therapists over 10 years. If only one set of records is submitted, the VA may dismiss the claim as episodic rather than chronic, drastically reducing the potential rating or leading to denial. The 8th costly error is failing to understand the difference between service-connected disabilities and secondary service-connected disabilities. We touched on this briefly, but it warrants a deep dive, because it is a sophisticated strategy that veterans often miss entirely, costing them massive rating increases. A primary service-connected condition is directly caused by service. A secondary condition is one that is caused or aggravated by an already service-connected condition. For example, if you are service-connected for knee problems, and because of your altered gait, you develop hip or back pain, the hip back pain is a secondary condition. If you are service-connected for PTSD and you develop sleep apnea due to weight gain caused by psychiatric medications, the sleep apnea is a secondary condition. The mistake is filing the secondary condition as a primary condition. If you file the sleep apnea as primary, you have to prove a direct nexus to service, e.g., specific in-service exposure, which is often impossible. If you file it as secondary to PTSD, you only need medical evidence linking the 2 diagnosed conditions. The major benefit of secondary claims is that they are often easier to prove, and they allow veterans to maximize their overall rating. Many veterans stop filing once they hit 50% or 60%, believing they've reached their limit. They overlook the cascading effect of their existing disabilities. For example, a veteran service-connected for major depressive disorder, MDD, might also suffer from erectile dysfunction, ED, or gastroesophageal reflux disease, GERD, due to the chronic stress, medication side effects, or lifestyle changes associated with MDD. Filing these as secondary claims requires a specialized nexus letter from a physician stating that the secondary condition is proximately caused by or aggravated by the primary MDD. Ignoring the secondary pathway means leaving significant rating points on the table. A veteran who is 70% for PTSD and 30% for knee pain might only be 80% overall. But if they successfully claim sleep apnea, ED, and GERD as secondary conditions, they can easily jump to 90% or even 100% P&T, permanent and total. This strategy requires careful medical consultation to ensure the secondary links are medically sound, but the financial reward is immense, often representing the difference between a livable monthly benefit and financial distress. The failure to analyze the total impact of service-connected conditions on the rest of the body is a major oversight that limits the veteran's rightful compensation. The 9th critical mistake is failing to track and document the frequency and severity of symptoms consistently, especially for fluctuating conditions. Many conditions, particularly mental health issues, migraines, or chronic fatigue, do not present with the same severity every day. They fluctuate. The VA rates these fluctuating conditions based on the average severity and the frequency of debilitating episodes. If you are claiming migraines, the rating schedule requires documentation of how many prostrating attacks you have per month, attacks so severe they require rest. If you don't track this, you cannot accurately represent your disability to the C&P examiner, and the examiner cannot check the box for the highest rating. Veterans often rely on their memory, which is insufficient and easily dismissed by the VA. The solution is simple, but requires discipline. Maintain a detailed symptom journal or pain log. This journal should be an ongoing, daily record. For physical pain, it should document the pain level, UNO 1 to 10, the duration, the activities that triggered it, and the functional limitations it imposed. For migraines, it should list the date, duration, severity, associated symptoms, nausea, light sensitivity, and the required recovery time. For mental health, it should record episodes of panic, isolation, outbursts, or inability to perform tasks, noting the date and the specific impact on work or social life. When you submit this journal as evidence, it provides irrefutable proof of the chronicity and severity of your condition, directly supporting the highest possible rating. If you walk into a C&P exam claiming migraines that require prostrating rest multiple times a month, but you have no documentation to back it up, the examiner must rely solely on your word, which is subjective. If you submit a 6-month log detailing 3 to 4 prostrating attacks every month, the evidence is objective and compels the rater to assign a higher rating. The cost of this mistake is the difference between a 30% rating and a 50% rating for a condition like migraines, which translates to thousands of dollars annually. Furthermore, this log serves as crucial evidence for establishing the continuity of the disability over time, further bolstering the nexus requirement. Finally, the 10th mistake, one that often derails the entire process before it even gets started, is PBM. Submitting incomplete, disorganized, or illegible paperwork and failing to use the proper VA forms. The VA system is an administrative bureaucracy, and it runs on paper and digital forms. If you send in a stack of loose papers, old receipts, and illegible handwritten notes, you are creating unnecessary work for the VA rater, and you are inviting delay and denial. The VA's duty to assist does not include the duty to organize your records. If the crucial piece of evidence, the nexus letter, is buried on page 347 of a disorganized PDF, the rater may genuinely miss it, leading to a denial based on insufficient evidence. Veterans often fail to use the most current versions of the required forms. E/Age, the VA Form 21-526EZ for initial claims. Using an outdated form can lead to the VA rejecting the submission entirely, costing you months and, crucially, the effective date of your claim. The solution here is simple. Become an organizational ninja. When submitting evidence, use a cover sheet that lists every document included. Number the pages. Highlight the relevant portions of the medical records. If you are submitting private records, ensure they are clearly labeled with the doctor's name and the date range. If you are filing a supplemental claim, clearly label the new evidence as new and relevant evidence and explain in the cover letter exactly how this new evidence addresses the previous reasons for denial. For instance, we are submitting the attached nexus letter from Dr. Jones, which directly addresses the VA's previous finding that the service connection was not established. This level of clarity and organization is not just helpful, it is essential for retention. When the rater opens your file and sees a clean, organized package that directly answers the questions raised in the denial letter, they can process the claim quickly and accurately. The financial cost of disorganization is the massive delay caused by the VA having to send back requests for clarification or the outright denial based on the simple administrative failure to locate the necessary evidence within the submission. Every hour the VA staff spends searching for your critical documents is an hour that delays your decision and jeopardizes your effective date. These 10 mistakes, the lack of a clear nexus, self-diagnosing, minimizing symptoms at the C&P exam, ignoring lay evidence, the shotgun filing approach, missing deadlines, neglecting current private records, misunderstanding secondary claims, failing to track symptoms, and submitting disorganized paperwork, are the hidden traps that cost veterans millions of dollars every year. They are not minor errors. They are structural flaws in the claim itself. The VA system is designed to reward preparation, precision, and medical documentation. It is not designed to reward hope or simple persistence. If you take one thing away from this exhaustive breakdown, let it be this: your claim is a legal case, and you are the plaintiff. You must provide the evidence, the argument, and the clear link required for success. Stop relying on the VA's duty to assist to fix your mistakes. Take ownership of your evidence, secure that professional nexus, document your suffering honestly, and organize your submission like a lawyer preparing for court. The difference between a lifetime of deserved compensation and continued denial rests entirely on your willingness to avoid these 10 catastrophic errors. Do the work now and secure the benefits you earned and deserve. Do not let these easily avoidable mistakes ruin your future. Start fixing your claim today.